Okay, this is the discussion of the syllabus for CIT 161. So, I am your instructor. My name is Wayne Beach. Briefly, my full-time job is in Central IT at the University of Kentucky, and I have been an adjunct faculty member at BCTC and its predecessor, LCC, since the spring 1999 semester. There's a more detailed bio video that I will be posting in Blackboard that tells more about my background, what I've taught, etc. My contact information, the best way to get in touch with me is via email to wayne.beach@kctcs.edu. The next section has the division contact. First is the area coordinator, which is Dana Brown, and our division assistant dean, who is Lauren Campbell. Suspect you won't need this information, but we have to put it in the syllabus, and if you do, the contact information is shown. Now, I'm not going to read the syllabus to you word by word, but I'm just going to go through and kind of hit the high points. But what we have next is the official course description. The other piece of information is this is a 4-hour credit course because it has a lab component to it. As far as prerequisites and co-requisites, you should have completed 105 and at least Math 65. And then as far as listed as prerequisite or co-requisite is CIT 111, the A+ class. You either have to have completed that or be enrolled in it this semester concurrently with 161. Next, we have the learning outcomes, which used to be called the course competencies. Basically what these are is if you participate in the class, you do your assignments, you get decent grades, etc. Upon finishing the class, these are the things that you should be able to explain and or do as a result of being in the course. Why it matters. CIT 161 is a required course that all CIT majors need to take. Also, if you're in the networking option, this is the first course in a series of Cisco Networking Academy courses that you need to take. Currently, there are 3 of those. There used to be 4. And CIT 161 is often referred to as Cisco 1. As far as course attendance and participation, this is a 100% online course, but the way you show participation is by doing your homework, submitting it on time, and checking and logging into Blackboard regularly. Preferred at least once a day, if not more, so that you can keep up with the course. As far as accommodations, if you believe you need accommodations made in the classroom to be successful in the course, those are worked out with the Student Accessibility Services Office, not directly with the instructor. So the process is you talk to the people in the SAS office, and if they decide that there is an accommodation or accommodations that need to be made for you to be successful in the course, they send me a formal letter that identifies the student and any accommodations that need to be made for that student. As far as class materials, years ago this used to be things like you need a couple of floppy disks and things like that. These days, since we're online, you're going to need computer and software, that type of thing is what we list here now. So for this course, we're going to be running something called Packet Tracer. And Packet Tracer is available for Windows computers, Mac OS computers, and Linux operating system. So you need to have one of those or have a virtual machine that is capable of running one of those operating systems that is capable of running Packet Tracer. So pretty early on you'll have an assignment to install Packet Tracer and start getting familiar with it, and we'll use it constantly throughout the semester. You also need a Blackboard account and an email account. Those are provided by KCTCS. Of course, if you're listening to this, you've already gotten into Blackboard, and presumably you are familiar with using your KCTCS email. This course requires constant access or consistent access to a computer, high-speed internet, a webcam, and a microphone. A microphone, I think we'll talk about this a little later. A microphone and webcam are required for taking the proctored exams in the class. There is no required textbook. That is because your textbook is basically in NetAcad and referred to as the curriculum. So everything is available to you by virtue of you just being enrolled in the class. If you prefer a printed copy, there are companion guides that match up with the curriculum, and they're as close as can be to what is in the NetAcad curriculum. Obviously, if there's a video in the NetAcad, can't play a video from a textbook, but everything else is going to be basically identical. So if you prefer a physical copy, there's information on where you can obtain that. Some miscellaneous things related to the course. The first is something called attendance verification, sometimes referred to as, quote, no-show. Years ago, before online classes, the policy related to no-shows was if a student did not attend one of the first 2 class meetings, you could declare them as a no-show and remove them from your class. These days, with online courses, you have to have a no-show activity. And my no-show activity is a assignment referred to as homework 0. I read the syllabus. So it's basically a true-false question that says, I have read the syllabus and ask any questions I had regarding the syllabus, true-false. That has to be done by the end of the day, January 22nd. If that is not done, then you will be marked as a no-show, removed from the class, and will not be eligible to re-enroll in the class in the current semester. A couple years back, they started requiring something called graded class components. I actually think this was a really good idea. Basically, I need to discuss with you any type of assignments that you will be having that will be factored into your final grade in the course. One that I already alluded to was Packet Tracer activities, sometimes abbreviated PKA. So, I'll have something like PKA 1.5.5 is due on such and such date. These are activities that you will find within your course curriculum. They were created by Cisco, and you will download a file that can be loaded into the application Packet Tracer, and then from there you will complete the assignment. So Packet Tracer is a emulator of Cisco equipment, so it's a way for us to do labs without physically being in the classroom using physical routers and switches. Pretty early on, like I said a minute ago, you will have an assignment that has you download Packet Tracer from the Networking Academy and start getting familiar with its use. Within the curriculum, there are also things called labs. These labs are typically meant to be done on physical equipment in the classroom. I will choose labs and alter them if necessary, or just tell you to do them on your machine at home if that will work out. So that's what most of the labs will be. Occasionally a lab is doing some research on the web. There are a couple of labs that I will assign where you go out and are just collecting information off the internet related to the course. We will have module group exams. They changed the name recently, and I am not used to the new name yet. But basically, these will be exams or quizzes over 2 or more modules within the book or within the curriculum. So those will be assigned throughout the semester, and as you'll see, are very important and a very big part of your grade in a moment. As far as exams, you will have a midterm exam and a final exam. The midterm exam will be made by me and will be administered, proctored in Blackboard. The final exam is made by Cisco, and you will take it through the Networking Academy at the end of the semester, and it will be proctored as well using a piece of software called Respondus. There's also something called the practice final. It is an exam that is very similar in the number of questions and type of questions as your actual final exam. So it lets you see how well you're understanding the material and if there's any areas you need to study before you take, quote, the real final. The score you make on the practice final will be averaged into your module group exam score. A couple of times I mentioned Respondus. This is a piece of software that you will use that proctors your exam. You will need a computer on which to install the Respondus web browser, and you need a properly working webcam and microphone, like I said a moment ago. You cannot use Respondus on a mobile device. It has to be on a computer. As far as grade assignment in the course, a couple of years ago they started official assignment of midterm grades. That is, about halfway through the semester, I am required to go into PeopleSoft and say, if I were to give all my students a grade right now, what would that grade be? And that gives you some idea of how you're progressing through the course and where you stand in the course grade-wise. There's also a final grade, of course, which will be posted. It's usually due by the end of the day, the Monday after finals week. This is how that final grade will be calculated. The average of your module group exams and the practice final will make up 40% of your grade. There are times I have people that for whatever reason miss or don't take the module group exams. If you don't take any of them, you're guaranteed to fail the class because that's 40 points off your final grade out of 100. Each one of these makes up, I believe it's about 6 points of your final grade. So any of these that you miss will lower your score in the class 6 points, or approximately half a letter grade. The online final that Cisco makes will be 20% of your grade. The midterm exam will be 20% of your grade. And then any other assignments such as homeworks, labs, and packet tracer activities will make up the remaining 20%. As far as late work and makeup work, I give a due date on the assignments. I expect that to be turned in by the end of the day on that due date. If for some reason, I understand that people might have required training or might have National Guard duty or something like that might cause a little bit of problem. If that applies to you, just get with me as soon as you know, and then we'll work out whether or not you can submit that work late, and if so, in what time frame. The other note I added here during the COVID times, when I became aware of this, since this is an online class, I have people from different colleges within KCTCS taking my class, and often they're in Kentucky, but not always. But if I have a student from Owensboro, they're going to be in the Central Time Zone. So when I say the end of the day, I'm talking about 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you happen to be in Owensboro or some other Central Time Zone, we're talking 10:59 p.m. So just keep that in mind if you're not in the same time zone as Lexington. As far as withdrawing from the class, you may or may not know this, with this being a 100 level course that is often taken during the first or second semester at BCTC. Up to the halfway point, the midterm date in the semester, you can just go into PeopleSoft and drop a class if you feel that's what you need to do. After that midpoint in the semester, to withdraw from a class, you need the instructor's permission. Now, there will be some instructors who say, I absolutely will not give permission to drop after the midterm date. If you're in my class past the midterm date, you're going to get whatever grade you get. I have kind of the opposite philosophy. I feel that the decision to withdraw from a class is a personal decision, and we may talk about it and make sure you are correct in understanding where you stand in the class, and make sure that withdrawing is really the right thing to do. But ultimately, if you say, I want to withdraw from the class, I'm going to give my permission. Now, the very important thing about this is you have to withdraw by the close of business on the last day of the regular semester, not finals week. So we're talking about the Friday before finals week. And I found out a long time ago that they're pretty strict on that. One semester, the deadline to do that was 5 p.m. on the last day of class. At about 6 or 6:30 on the last day of class, a student who had stopped participating in the class emailed me and basically said, I don't want to get an F in the class. What do I do? And I said, well, it's past the deadline, but I emailed the registrar's office and I said, this student, if you will allow him to withdraw, has my permission to withdraw from the class. And shortly after 8 a.m. on Monday, we got an email from the registrar's office that said, sorry, the student missed the deadline. So unfortunately, that student ended up getting an E because he waited an hour too late to request to withdraw from the class. So keep that in mind. As far as email in the class, any email you send, regardless of whether it's class email, if it's personal mail in your personal life, should have a meaningful subject. In this class, a good subject is one that contains the course number and then a description of what your issue was. So, for example, CIT 161, problem with PKA 2.3.4. That's a good subject. I know you're one of my 161 students. I know you're having an issue with a particular assignment, in this case, Packet Tracer 234. And I know when that's due, so I know how much urgency to take in replying to that email, etc. As I said earlier, you're expected to check your email frequently, at least once a day is recommended. The other thing here in bold, please do not use the Blackboard messaging system. That is just going to slow down you getting an answer. The reason being, first of all, I am constantly checking my email. I might not constantly be checking Blackboard. So, I have to actually be in Blackboard. So there'll be a slight delay there. When I actually see the message, I will reply to it, type my reply in, send it, and it will bounce because it will be addressed to something like do not reply at some address. So I'll send it, it'll bounce back to me. I then have to go back and find the message, find out what student it was, look up that student's email address, start an email to the student, go copy and paste, the question and my response out of Blackboard into the email and then send it to you. So the advantages of doing this the way I ask is you will get a much prompter response, and I will have a lot less frustration basically having to compose the message twice. Here's some general resources that you might want to look at. The only thing I want to mention is the Starfish and Early Alert. During the 4th week of class and the 12th week of class, typically, I have what's called a Starfish survey that I have to complete, and it is basically comments to each student as to how they're doing in the course. So, it'll be things like, good job, keep up the good work, hey, you're missing a few assignments, hey, you're missing a lot of assignments and you're getting really far behind. You should really think about dropping the class because you're super far behind, and or not taking module exams or have poor scores on exams, that type of thing. So again, that's during the 4th and 12th week of course, typically. As far as embedded tutor, for the last few years, I have had an embedded tutor in the class. Embedded tutors are called embedded tutors because originally they were embedded in the classroom, which means they actually attended class with the students. So they got to hear what I was teaching. They got to know who the students were. The students kind of knew who the tutor was that they were interacting with, that type of thing. So with this class being 100% online, we'll likely have an embedded tutor, but he or she will meet with you over Teams for tutoring sessions. When I know who that person will be, I will send email out telling you who they are and how to contact them, and often the tutor will send an announcement out to the course introducing themselves as well. This is the BCTC Equity and Unity Statement that was adopted in 2017. You can read through that. Academic policies and expectations. The first is on what they call the integrity policy. It's had lots of different names: academic dishonesty, cheating, that type of thing. But basically what it boils down to is any work you submit should be your own. It shouldn't be something that you got from somebody else or worked with somebody else on or somebody else did for you. And you need to make sure that you use appropriate use of artificial intelligence. Misuse would be just basically asking the AI to do your homework and then copying the answers. And to be honest with you, when that happens, it's usually pretty obvious and you will get a bad grade if it's bad enough and end the class for doing that. The next two things I left in here just because they are things that we're asked to put in the syllabus, but they do not really apply to this class. The first is a classroom recording policy about if I'm recording a Teams meeting, let's say, that has people's pictures and names in it. I left that in because you may have other classes that are recording things. When I first started teaching online during COVID, I would try to have a Teams meeting where we all got together towards the first week of class, and I went over the syllabus and took any questions or comments that students had. However, I find it's a pain, basically impossible, to find a time that a good majority of the students can attend this. And even when I do choose a time, a lot of students didn't attend. So what I've started doing is what I'm doing right now, basically recording me discussing the syllabus and then putting it in Blackboard so that hopefully everybody gets to see it and hear it. The next thing is the closed campus contingency. This is really for hybrid and in-person classes. If we were having an in-person class and all of a sudden COVID hit again, how would we switch to 100% online like we had to do at the beginning of COVID? This is an online class already, so this should not change at all the way we deliver or progress through the semester. The last thing we have here is a tentative course schedule. Again, you can look over this, but this is typically week by week what I think we will be working on. A couple of things to point out is the first thing right here is your midterm exam. It occurs during week 8. It will be proctored and it will be administered on Monday through Thursday of that week. Of course, with this being a spring semester, we have spring break. So there's spring break week marked in the tentative schedule. And then finally, down here at the bottom, during finals week, which is at the beginning of May, you will have your final exam. Your final exam will be comprehensive. It will be proctored, and it will be administered Monday through Thursday of finals week. Occasionally, not occasionally, most of the time, I will open the final exam up a little earlier. So, for example, this is Monday through Thursday. I might actually end up making it available to you on Friday the week before, so that gives you a weekend. If you would prefer to take it on the weekend, either just because that's your preference or because of a work schedule, etc. So, I'll make an announcement closer to the end of the semester about that. So that's a really brief discussion of your syllabus. If you happen to have any questions related to that, please let me know.